Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with me this afternoon. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogutu. It is a pleasure to have you on board on the show. I get to bring you up to date with the latest news from across the continent of Africa. And today being a Monday, I have so much to catch you up to from what happened from over the weekend. And we start with some news from Algeria. And the French Energy Ministry has confirmed reports that talks are underway between gas giant Engie and Algeria's Sonatrach to potentially increase gas imports to France. Reports on Sunday suggested a 50% boost being discussed. The development comes soon after President Emmanuel Macron's visit to Algiers. Gas makes up a fifth of France's energy needs, with Algeria covering just over 8% of that. Algeria is Europe's biggest gas supplier after Russia and Norway. And we head over to Ethiopia, and fighting has continued to be reported in northern Ethiopia's Amara region bordering Tigray after a 5-month humanitarian truce was shattered last week. Tigrayan forces took the Amara town of Kobo on Saturday. After pushing southwards near the border, the army had earlier said it was withdrawing from the town to avoid the risk of a high number of casualties. Residents of nearby towns and villages who have talked to the media say fighting has continued in the mountain ranges close by, and the situation remained volatile. Meanwhile, authorities in Moldia and Desir, the two major Amara cities near the area, have imposed partial nighttime curfews. Ethiopian regional governments, including Oromia and the Somali region in the east, have expressed solidarity with the army and the Amara Afar regions that are scenes of the renewed clashes. At the height of the war last year, various regions sent forces to the front lines. There were widespread claims on social media that Tigrayan borders with neighboring Eritrea could also see the return of active fighting. Senior Tigrayan official Getachew Reda has claimed members of the Ethiopian Army's Eastern Command crossed borders to join efforts with the Eritrean allies. And journalists in Sudan have created the country's first independent professional union in decades and elected as president a journalist working for the French news agency AFP. Professional groups in Sudan have led protests against both the former President Omar al-Bashir, who was forced from office in 2019, and the leaders of the military coup that overthrew the transitional government last October. Journalists allied with Mr. Bashir had attempted to prevent Sunday's vote, going ahead arguing that a new union could not replace the body that was controlled by the former president during his 30 years in power. And then we go to Libya, and following Saturday's deadly clashes that took place in the Libyan capital Tripoli, the Prime Minister of the Tripoli-based government, Abdul Hamid Deiba, stressed the need for elections. Militias patrolled nearly deserted streets in Libya's capital on Sunday, a day after clashes killed over 30 people and ended Tripoli's months-long stretch of relative calm. The fighting broke out early Saturday and pitted militias loyal to the Tripoli-based government against other armed groups allied with the rival administration that has for months sought to be seated in the capital. Residents fear the fighting that capped a months-long political deadlock could explode into a wider war and a return to the peaks of Libya's long-running conflict. Libya has plunged into chaos since NATO-backed uprising toppled and killed longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. The oil-rich country has for years been split between rival administrations, each backed by rogue militias and foreign governments. We head over to the Central African Republic, and opposition leaders and civil society associations are gathered in Central Africa's Republic capital in Bangui on Saturday to demonstrate against the attempted revision of the constitution. The protest was called one day after President Faustin Archange Touadera ordered the creation of a committee to rewrite the constitution. One opposition leader denounced the initiative, accusing the president of trying to scrape the two-term presidential limit set in the constitution. Touadera won a second term in 2020 with 53.16%, a share of the vote in a controversial poll, and widespread insecurity in the Central African Republic, which has been battling a decade-long civil war. Less than 1 in 3 voters were able to cast a ballot in a country that has about 5 million, which the UN says is the world's second least developed nation. And then we head over to Now we stay with Kenya, and Somali-based Al-Qaeda-affiliated Islamist militant group Al-Shabab has issued a new threat against neighboring Kenya. The group said it will continue its attacks in that country as long as Kenyan troops are in Somalia. Al-Shabab said in an English language statement Saturday it will continue to target Kenyan towns and cities until Kenyan troops are out of Somalia. It said that if the Kenyan government continues to maintain its invasion of Muslim lands, it will continue to strike inside Kenya. Al-Shabab has been fighting Somalia government and AU peacekeeping operations in the country for more than 15 years now. Unidentified gunmen killed 6 people and wounded 2 others in an attack on a convoy from the Convoy gold mine in eastern Burkina Faso, the army said on Saturday. Last week, 5 vehicles were dispatched from the mine, which is owned by Toronto-listed Endeavour Mining, to help a nearby convoy that had been stuck in the mud for days, the army statement said. The attack occurred after the convoy was back on the road again. The assailants targeted the 5 support vehicles when they became separated from the convoy and its security detail. Endeavour, the biggest gold miner in the West African country, did not respond to requests for comment, and it was not immediately clear if those killed were employees of Endeavour or its partners, or if operations at the mine were impacted. We head over to Chad, and a leading Chad rebel group said on Saturday it had killed 10 soldiers in the north part of the country, a claim the government rejected as fake news. The militant commander Council for the Salvation of the Republic, CCMSR, said troops had attacked its forces in the Wuri district in the northern Tibesti region, neighboring Niger and Libya. The group, which has refused to sign a peace deal with the government, said its fighters had killed 10 soldiers for the funeral of long-serving ex-leader Jose Eduardo dos Santos, who died in Spain in July, but whose burial was delayed by a family request for an autopsy. Angola's former strongman President Jose Eduardo dos Santos, whose nearly 4-decade rule of the oil-rich nation was marred by allegations of plunder and nepotism, was laid to rest amid a family row. The funeral, which was disputed by some of his children, was held at the historic palm tree-lined Praca di Repubblica in the seaside capital Luanda on what would have been dos Santos' 80th birthday. It came days after his party, the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, MPLA, which has ruled the country for nearly half a century, saw its worst results at the polls in the most hotly contested election since independence. And according to Namibia's ex-president Sam Najumo, who was 93 years old and who was also present during the funeral, he said dos Santos, who died last month following a cardiac arrest, will be remembered as a statesman and devoted Pan-Africanist. The presence of foreign VIPs has enabled authorities to seek to head off possible protests over the disputed provincial results. With 90% of ballot counted, the Electoral Commission has given the MPLA and President João Lourenço a 51 majority, with the main opposition, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, UNITA, trailing with 44.5%. UNITA's leader Costa Jr. has rejected the results as fraudulent, and there have been sporadic protests that were quickly shut down by police. The Electoral Commission has said the process was fair and transparent. We go back to Ethiopia, and the UN Children's Agency UNICEF on Saturday condemned an airstrike that hit a kindergarten in Ethiopia's Tigray region, killing at least 4 people, including 2 children. Friday's strike at the Tigrayan capital Mekelle came days after fighting erupted on the region's southern border between government forces and rebels, ending a 5-month truce. The Tigray's People Liberation Front, TPLF, that controls the northern region, said the air raid demolished a kindergarten and hit a civilian residential area, claims the government denied. Addis Ababa said it only targeted military sites and accused the TPLF of staging civilian deaths. Kibrom Gebre-Selassie, chief clinical director of Mekelle's Ida Referral Hospital, told AFP that 4 people were killed in the strike, including the 2 children. All right, we head over back to Nigeria, and some 1.74 million children under the age of 5 face acute malnutrition in northeast Nigeria, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs now says. The militant Boko Haram group and its offshoot Islamic State West African Province have been fighting Nigerian security forces in the northeast for over a decade, displacing more than 2 million people and killing hundreds of others. Aid agencies have confirmed the United Nations OCHA needs $1 billion this year to assist 5.5 million people, including women and children, with food aid in the 3 states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. The OCHA has raised 42% of the required funds 8 months into the year, according to a briefing to reporters. Some international donors have shifted funding elsewhere, including Ukraine, Ethiopia, and Afghanistan, which are also facing increased humanitarian needs, the OCHA has learned. We go to Rwanda now, and President Paul Kagame has warned local leaders against complacency and poor service delivery that stalls government programs for citizens. He made the remark on Friday in Nyamagambe district during a meeting with citizens and local leaders. During the session, several citizens complained about limited access to infrastructure, including roads and water, the high cost of doing business, and delayed compensation after court orders were issued. He warned that leaders will be held accountable should they not deliver. He raised the same issue during his meeting with over 800 opinion leaders from the southern province in Huye district on Thursday. The president questioned quality of facilities that cost money to build but are not used to full capacity. He called on them to prioritize solutions to existing challenges. Then we end with some news from Nigeria, and after a series of heated discussions, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has decided to extend its ongoing strike. A local media has confirmed the decision was taken after the National Executive Council meeting at the union's headquarters at the University of Abuja on Monday morning. ASUU had declared the commencement of a strike on Monday, February 14, 2022, at the University of Lagos. The spokesperson for the Federal Ministry of Education, Ben Gong, in an interview with a local media house, explained that the government had taken all possible steps to end the strike. And meanwhile, the Committee of Pro-Chancellors of State Universities on Monday said state universities could not be coerced to implement the agreement reached between the federal government and lecturers in federal universities under the aegis of the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Pro-Chancellors also stated that there was a need for democratization of membership of unions in the universities, noting that state universities' membership was voluntary. There are reports that some state universities have come under fire over their failure to pull out of the ongoing strike declared by the national body ASUU. And that is the latest news from across the continent of Africa. Very good afternoon to you. The issue of this Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria, I think, is completely out of hand since February, and I was just watching some news item on the same where now the students have been forced to go and start looking for work or just something else to keep them busy. From February to now, you know, the universities, all public universities, have been closed because of the increased strike that we've seen not just in the education sector but also in the health sector, and the length of time these strikes go on with the government doing very little or even nothing to try and salvage the situation, only leaves, the majority of the children in Nigeria to suffer. And I think the last time we were doing this story, leaders of these unions were saying the reason why the government and stakeholders in the government are very slow to respond to such issues is because their own kids don't even attend these public schools. Matter of fact, they're not even in Nigeria. They're somewhere out there in the US, in the UK, and other countries. And I see some of them here in Kenya, getting their education while there's a problem back home, and they really don't care to fix the situation. I think it's quite sad, if not absurd. Can you imagine, since February, public universities have been closed, and the government has really not done much to address it. But according, of course, to the Federal Ministry of Education, the spokesperson, he's saying that the government has taken all possible steps to end the strike. So I think at this point, the government of Buhari is just throwing in the towel, because by the time you say you've done all you can, which is not much, clearly, because where are the results, yeah? And so he's thrown in the towel. That's what I see. I think at this point, Buhari is just waiting to leave office next year in February. I think he's so... We know he's very much out of touch with what happens in Nigeria, judging from the responses we've been getting, or none, from the things that are really important to the population there. But at this point, when you see how, what do you call it? He's not even making any effort to address anything. I think he's just sitting there waiting for his retirement. In a couple of months, Nigeria will go to its elections and they will bring in a new president. And I think he wants the next government to deal with the mess that he will be leaving behind. It's quite unfortunate. It really is. Why would government, universities, I can't even imagine if that should happen here. All right? Because majority of the institutions in the country that most of our children go to are public institutions. We do have a good number of private universities and private schools, but majority of the Kenyan population and the Kenyan children, and even adults who are still pursuing their education, they go to these public institutions. So I can't imagine from February to now that universities will be closed. Okay, we've had a couple of protests and demonstrations and strikes, and even for us in the health sector, in the education sector, but the government has found ways of trying to address these issues. Some of them are still underlying, has not been effectively been addressed, so there's always a strike looming somewhere. But right now we're in school and our kids are learning and things like that. So I think the government of Nigeria is just callous, does not care, out of touch, aloof, does not give a damn about the normal citizen. All right, if they're not being kidnapped for ransom, then they can't even go to school. And if they make it to school, there's a possibility they'll be kidnapped in school or even be murdered. So it's a very lose-lose situation there from Nigeria. I think the issue of this program by Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, I think I talked about it here on Thursday last week. I think it's quite commendable. I was telling about this in-person meet and talk. It's not meet and greet. It's meet and talk with the people. That's what President Paul Kagame does. He visits a region. He just makes a surprise meeting and he checks around what is happening, gets the feedback from his people, especially the public institutions, and he gets to know how service delivery is going on and how people are responding, and if at all there's some of the things they would wish to be done better or to be changed. I was a bit skeptical when I was talking about this on Thursday. As we all know, the persona of President Paul Kagame, and so I was just wondering how open or how honest the people will be when they meet their president and share what they think is not right or is not being done right by the government, and how open he will be to receive that. And I thought that perhaps he, because of what we hear and what we read and what comes out of Rwanda, so maybe he may not get a honest feedback. But maybe that just has to do with politics, which I think the people of Rwanda know better not to engage in. But it appears from his visit to that part of the country that he visited last Friday, he really got a lot of feedback from the people, and they complained about limited access to infrastructure, including roads and water, the high cost of doing business, and delayed compensation after court orders were issued, and so many other issues that the people would want as far as service delivery from government institutions is concerned. This is a very effective, I know, Rwanda is a smaller country, so maybe you would argue it's easier for President Paul Kagame to do that. But I think it's very effective. That is, look here, President Buhari, that is how you get in touch with the things that are happening in your country, and you know how to address them. But then Nigeria maybe is bigger than Rwanda, which is true. And so, but I think in when you look at Paul Kagame, and you can say a lot about him, and I know I do that, and I criticize him all day long, but there are things that he does as far as governance is concerned in Rwanda that perhaps a few of our leaders in this continent could borrow. So many countries, if they had gone through what Rwanda went through in 1994, they will still be reeling from that. They will still be fighting. They will still be in that. Yeah, but Rwanda picked itself from there, and Rwanda, through the leadership of Paul Kagame, granted he's overstayed, but maybe he's working well for the people of Rwanda. Okay, we're not talking about democracy today, but Rwanda was able to pick itself up and able to put itself back to, just working, and his style of governance, I really like it. He goes to the people. You see him getting involved. They have days where you don't take a vehicle to work or whatever, you walk, I don't know, something. And there's also a day they've set aside to just clean up. So you see, it's a big community of one people, and through such efforts, Rwandese have been able to value the coming together and the working together, and just taking responsibility for their own country because they're being inspired by their president. So I'm thinking there's something President Paul Kagame is doing there in Rwanda that we could borrow. I know we want democracy, and I know we enjoy, like my country, we enjoy certain freedoms of speech, of association, of every other freedoms that we fought for as far as our democracy is concerned. That is good. I don't want anybody taking away from that. But also there are also other things that I think we could, borrow and could work for us as a society. And I believe in other countries across the continent also could borrow. That's really good. So when these people complained to their president about some of these things, best believe these government officials will have to work on these issues, because President Kagame, from what I understand, he will make sure he does a checkup and see how are things going on. Are the issues that were raised by the people, how are they being addressed, and is there a change? And if not, you will be replaced very quickly. Then the next thing you know, I don't know if we'll be able to locate you where you are. I don't know, but something like that. Okay, but I think his form of governance is really amazing. It's really amazing, and I like that. I'm saying we're not talking about democracy in Rwanda today, but in other aspects of President Kagame's leadership, I really admire how he has really shown leadership there in Rwanda, and we could borrow something. President Buhari could borrow something, and the rest of the presidents from across the continent could borrow something. Of course, the long-serving former leader of Angola, Jose dos Santos, was buried yesterday on his 80th birthday. Yesterday, 28th of August, was his birthday. He died on the 8th of July, I believe, in Barcelona, Spain. And the family took their time before they brought the body home. I think they brought the body back home on the 24th. And so he was buried yesterday. His older children, I doubt if they were part of the funeral, because some of them are being sought after by the current leadership, because of they allegedly, benefited so much when their father was president for 38 years through corruption and other means, and has been going after that family. So Isabella dos Santos, the richest woman in Africa, was not able to attend her father's funeral, and her other Chize and other older kids were not able to attend the funeral. Of course, this comes in a backdrop. Remember, Angolans went to their elections on 24th, I believe, and the results show that the current president, Lourenço, has won, and his party has garnered about 51% of majority of the votes, and so he might be, retaining his position. I think that is what is there. But of course, the opposition leader of Unite, Costa Jr., has disputed these results, and he has rejected, and he said, no, this is fraudulent, and there has been sporadic protests since that announcement. So anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. So I think that is some other news that I was not able to bring on time, but maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. South Sudan. I was reading just a couple of minutes ago before I came up here. South Sudan's president is welcoming South Sudanese who can make it tomorrow for the graduation of the unified forces, 50,000 of them. And I was just watching some clips and seeing how the cadets were practicing and rehearsing for tomorrow. I'm really excited. It might be too late. They might have took their time to do this, but I'm happy because this is a very important step and integral as far as the stability of South Sudan is concerned. These unified forces, there's supposed to be about 83,000 of them, is it? I believe so. But so far, only 50,000 will be able to graduate tomorrow. So the president of South Sudan is welcoming all people of well-meaning and the people of South Sudan to be part of the passing out parade. I believe that is what it should be tomorrow, or graduation tomorrow there in South Sudan. So this makes me happy because, I really complain about the issues in South Sudan a lot, and for good reason, because of what has been happening there. So this is a very important step. So once this is out of the way, and I'd like to see President Salva Kiir and the other stakeholders working on the other aspects of the revitalized peace agreement of 2018, because we need to get this thing going. We need South Sudan back in track, and we need the elections happening. But before the elections happen, then we need enough security around South Sudan where people now will feel safe to go back to their homes, to go back to their workplaces, to start rebuilding their lives. I think these security forces are going to be paramount, and I hope that now they have that mentality, because I want to believe that is what they're being taught when they're going through all the training and the unification process, that now you pledge allegiance to the country and the people of South Sudan, not to Salva Kiir, not to Riek, not to any other person. You pledge your allegiance to the country and the flag of South Sudan, period. I think once they're able to get that, then that's how even the people are going to feel safe to go back home. So I hope they have rebranded and removed that militancy mentality and just, hopefully know that they are a national force now, a national force, not a regional militia, not a communal militia, because a lot of these people have been drawn from these areas. So that is my prayer. So I'm excited to see what will happen tomorrow, and I'm excited because this perhaps would mark a very important stage for South Sudan as a country to start moving forward. All right, we move forward. I know they postponed the elections to 2024. 2024. I don't understand why. Yeah, but they did. But hopefully, there will be no postponement of an election again if you get everything in order in which they're supposed to be. Okay, I want to thank you so much. Of course, there's been a renewed fighting in Tripoli. The opposing sides from the eastern and the western side, which don't agree, and also that they're allied to one part of the leadership, one allied to the UN-backed government, and the other one, Haftar, Khalifa Haftar. I've not heard of him for a long time, but yeah, his people are still fighting there. And there've also been a renewed fighting in Tigray between the government and the Tigrayan forces. So the death toll has started again. It's quite sad. I don't know what will become of this Ethiopian conflict. I don't know what will bring to an end this Ethiopian conflict, because I think we've become very complacent and we've just turned our face the other side and just hope that they will be able to figure out themselves what is happening. But clearly, and nothing much is changing. And I don't know, the former president of Nigeria, what is his name? Goodluck Jonathan, I think, was the one leading, urgent meetings to address these ongoing active conflicts from across the continent of Africa. I've not heard African Union even discuss some of these things. Musa Faki is just there, and I think he has normalized these things. And unless there's some influence or some other Western power is the ones talking and bringing these things to his attention, he's just there. African Union is not doing enough to address these, active conflicts in this continent, which I think is very sad. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. It's about 31 minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi, East African time. My name is Miriam Ogotu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.